Sure. John Palusci. I'm an M&A executive, seeing deals from the beginning to the end. Yeah, it was at a point where my organization wanted to become the serial acquirer. They didn't want to be reinventing the wheel every time. It was healthcare, and so you needed a really secure platform that hit all the marks on your certifications and security, HIPAA compliance, all those kinds of things. So that was like table stakes. But then we also wanted a really highly repeatable process that let us ask the same questions, gave complete transparency into where things were, what had been received, reviewed, how do we flag issues, who's on the hook, like really holding each other accountable, whether it's the buyer or the seller on where things are at. We kind of had it with the banter that happens usually in diligence and just really needed a partner who was going to make this go so much smoother than it ever had been by giving all that functionality. I mean, it felt like, if you can say it, like Facebook for deals, right? Like you've got, and especially where I was, everyone said they wanted to know everything about a deal. Even if you weren't the directly responsible person for like assessing a piece of diligence, people could follow, right? And get notified along the way and lurk sometimes, right? With DealRoom, the ability to permission things right and to give people the option to follow and listen in for the things that they care about versus the things that they've been told to care about, just really built transparency and trust in the process. I mean, the deals went smoother. And really for my organization, it was the organization had more trust in the deal team because they saw that it was, a nice, slick process with a great system that was polished. And it also held everyone accountable to what was going on. Everyone knew like what they needed to look at. It would ping them, when they needed to look at something. It would remind them when they needed to review. Even when you're a serial acquirer, you're leaning on folks, in shared services, in the back office to look at things, and they have day jobs. And so you want to make it as easy it is for them to sign off on something or find a risk and escalate it. And it just made kind of the digestion of diligence just so much quicker and easier. And even if a deal got hot and heavy, everyone sort of knew why during the process. It wasn't a mystery. It didn't necessarily change how quickly sellers could respond to things. It allowed them to manage their own workflow easier because they knew what they needed to do. But it made the internal review of that stuff just way faster. Instead of having your weekly meeting of like, so what's everyone think? Anyone seeing anything? Right? And you do that for so long because you didn't really have anything to kind of put it all together. You could just get through, the buyer side of the diligence so much more quickly because you knew where you were at any given time. I think people, brokers I've run into, it's the typical spreadsheet madness, right? You've got your request lists, you're keeping track of status, was it received, was it reviewed? Sometimes you have lawyers in the middle of all that, which is fun. And that's usually what we've seen is, or they've got a data room where at least you've got a secure place to dump everything. But that's it. Behind it, you're still trying to keep track of and holding each other accountable to a timeline, a delivery list to ultimately get a certain set of questions asked that maybe the documents support, maybe they don't. A lot of folks sort of have their standard list, which they may just send without even needing to use the information. And so understanding what actually matters, what the questions you're trying to answer soon, often gets lost in probably an unsophisticated process that I've seen maybe in the past 5-10 years. The deal slows down, right? And time kills deals. Like we all know that. It creates friction for the buyer and the seller of getting the deal done quickly, getting the questions answered sufficiently. And so the corp dev team's often in the middle of that. They often have the inertia of working on something and they want to get the deal done. And you're trying to temper that with making sure it's the right deal and then being frustrated with what seems to be easily avoidable problems, early on in the process. And so having a really clear, consistent way to know what's going on can alleviate that. Yeah, we really have to have your strategy straight. You can't just hire an M&A person and tell them to go figure things out, find things. You really need to know what you want to look for, how it's going to help you. You need to have a really good understanding of your own operations and where inorganic can help launch them, get them to the next level, or is it a way to get into a market you couldn't get into otherwise? It's hard because you want to build a competency that can be feast or famine, can be bumpy, chunky. You may not be busy all the time. And so having that investment in something that you may need to scale quickly and then scale back on can be tough. It's an investment in its own right to have the right kind of people to do it the right way when you need it and when you're ready for it. Where we were usually acquiring, sometimes a broker's involved, but they're, local brokers, no one really big. Or it was the founder and like their CFO at the time. And so they don't usually do a ton of deals. They've maybe done one or two. They don't know what to do. You're coaching them through this process. I think every buyer does that. But for them to have like a nice, well-oiled, reliable thing, like just helps build that trust in the whole process that you're going to take care of them through this deal, to make it easier on them. So unsophisticated isn't the right word. It's just if you're selling your business that you built from the ground up, you just don't have the experience. Founders, leaders, want to be an acquirer. It's fun, sexy. It's an easy way to win quickly. It's a good way to build growth, build relevance. I think everyone wants to do it well. And to do it well, you need to do it pretty frequently. Trying to figure it out one at a time, once a year, you sort of forget how things are done. And so investing in a team and a process just makes that likelihood of something going well that much higher. Buyer-led M&A is when you, the buyer, are in the driver's seat of the whole process. You are making the requests, you are setting the stage and the tone for what's going well, what isn't in the deal. You are in charge of the integration plan, you're in charge of pushing the seller to make decisions for their own team. And it's so important because while you may be parting ways at the end of it, the buyer's taking on most of the risk and is on the hook for execution. And so why shouldn't they be driving a process that's going to make that successful?